Hello, everyone. My name is Michaela McLean Wilkes with Liberty Counsel. I'm here with Dr. William Lile. He has been speaking across the nation on behalf of the preborn. And he's successfully educated pregnancy resource centers, churches, pro-life organizations with the message that a patient is a person, no matter how small. So thank you, Dr. Lile, for taking the time out of your busy schedule and jumping on here with us.
It's an honor to be here with you, Michaela, and thank you very much.
Thank you. So tell us how you got started advocating for the preborn.
Well, I practice medicine. The patients in the womb are my patient population. Back in 1999, when I was finishing my residency program, the practice that we actually took over was the largest abortion clinic here on the Florida Panhandle. So we took over the practice. We had the former physician sign a restrictive covenant, a non-compete, and he couldn't practice medicine for 2 years. And we stopped all the abortions and all the abortion referrals on day one. And it just has sort of evolved into a ministry defending my patients' lives in the womb.
Wow, that is amazing. It truly is a ministry, like you said. Your motto is a patient, a person is a person, no matter how small. I just love that motto. Why did you choose this as your slogan?
Well, they are my patients. Whenever I have a pregnant patient in my office, I really have two patients. And it's not just well, we're thinking of the baby as a patient. We are treating them as a patient. Yes, we can diagnose them with ultrasound, but we are clearly treating them. And it's the medicine is advancing every month with new ways we treat the preborn. When I speak at medical schools, a lot of times we'll talk about patients' rights, and patients definitely have rights. Florida has a patient bill of rights. New York State, as liberal as they are, they have 22 different rights that are given to all patients. Well, what's the definition of a patient? A patient is a person receiving medical care. Well, if they are a person, that goes to the 12th Amendment protecting all persons. So we'll ask medical students, if I have a patient in the ER that needs a blood transfusion or heart surgery or vascular surgery, do I have an obligation to provide that patient in the ER with care? And they're like, yes, absolutely. I'm like, okay, what if that patient was not born in the United States? And they'll chime back and they'll say, it doesn't matter if they weren't born in the United States. They're a patient and they need that blood transfusion, heart surgery, or vascular surgery. I agree with you. And every one of those patients received the care that they needed, even though they weren't born in the United States
Mhm.
yet. And that's the key, because here at my hospital, we have done life-saving blood transfusions to babies in the womb as early as 18 weeks gestation.
Wow.
Routinely, we're doing open heart surgery, spina bifida corrective surgery, brain surgery on babies as early as 24 weeks. We are doing laser vascular surgery, giving medications just to the babies. And so if they are a patient, they are a person, and they, as a person, they deserve our protection. Our state health insurance are covering this at hundreds of millions of dollars. Our Medicaid private insurance is paying for this. A lot of the centers used to be called maternal fetal medicine centers. Well,
Mm.
most of them have dropped the whole word maternal, and they're just saying we are a fetal surgical medical center. So fetus is not a bad word. It just means little one.
Wow.
So if we're going to call them fetal centers, then great. But they are my patients. I'll do anything for my patients, whether that's a mom who's pregnant or whether that's the baby in the womb. And we have a duty as good government to defend the lives of all of our patients.
Absolutely. You were talking about doing these in utero procedures to save the preborn baby's life. What message does that give regarding the personhood of the preborn?
Well, let's start with just informed consent. That's one of the first things that we're taught as medical students, is that you are not the doctor. You're not in charge of everything. You don't tell patient what they're supposed to have done. You're supposed to review risks, benefits, indications, and alternatives. So when we're doing a procedure to save the life of a baby, are there risks to the mom? Yeah, there's risk of bleeding. There's risk of infection. She's probably going to have a C-section. What are the benefits to the mom? There's not a single benefit. Well, we don't do surgery on somebody unless a patient is going to benefit. So if we're doing this routinely around the country, who's benefiting? The only patient that's benefiting is the patient in the womb. The patient in the womb is the one that is getting all the benefit, and there also is a risk. So it's important to discuss not only, patients' rights, but informed consent. But we are saving their lives, we are treating them as patients, and that's the duty of good government.
So good. Absolutely. Well, a few more questions for you.
Sure.
Thank you so much. This is so informative, and you truly are a professional, but also from a ministry standpoint, you can see how God is using your platform in such mighty ways to advocate for the voiceless. So, as you know, this Wednesday, February 7th, Matt Staver will be arguing for Liberty Counsel in front of the Florida Supreme Court to oppose a proposed amendment that would codify unlimited abortion into Florida's state constitution. The amendment language leaves terms like healthcare, provider, necessary, and health undefined. So, as a pro life OB, why does that concern you? What about that language concerns you?
Well, I'm not a legal expert. I'm a medical expert. I've been practicing and licensed to practice medicine in Florida for over 25 years. Well,
Mhm.
first, it says viability, where the state cannot interfere, block, or delay an abortion until viability. Well, it doesn't define viability, but we generally think of that being 23, 24 weeks gestation. There have been babies around the country, even at UAB up in Birmingham, that have survived at 22 weeks gestation. But the most concerning clause to me is where it says or. So it's talked about the state can interfere prior to viability, but then there's a second part, almost like a clause two. And
Right.
that says, unless the mother's health is threatened as determined by her health care provider. Well, what does health, how do we define health? Well, Roe versus Wade, 1973. There was another case the same day as Roe versus Wade called Doe versus Bolton. Doe versus Bolton actually defined health. And it said that health was defined as physical, emotional, psychological, familial, or age. So the patient might have their health jeopardized because they're too old, they're too young, their mom doesn't want her to have this, or dad doesn't want to have it, they're depressed, they're anxious, they have anxiety. It was just so broad, it really doesn't provide any limitations. But when
Right.
it comes to health is being threatened, well, who determines that? By
Mhm.
her own healthcare provider. Well, look at under the Florida Department of Health website. I mean, it's not just physicians.
Mhm.
Healthcare provider is physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners. It even includes tattoo artists,
Tattoo.
medical assistants. So are we going to, under the Florida Department of Health rules, say that, a healthcare provider is a tattoo artist?
Right.
No. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. We need to protect all patients here in the state of Florida. We are spending millions of dollars of Florida insurance money and Florida Medicaid resources to treat and cure these babies in the womb, and they have value. So we need to lead with our value. We worked for years for a constitutional amendment called the Human Life Protection Amendment, where we did not meet the number of signatures that we required to get it on the ballot. Plus, just the name of this a constitutional amendment. Floridians protecting freedom. I mean, I live in Pensacola, the home of the Blue Angels. I've delivered 5 of their kids. To me, if
Wow.
I just read that, it reads like, oh, this must be something to help our veterans so that we can protect freedom. That's a good thing.
Right.
Until you realize who the sponsors were. It was primarily sponsored by the ACLU of Florida and Planned Parenthood and some other very liberal groups. And when you say Floridians protecting freedom, that's really just an unlimited access to abortion at any gestational age for any reason. And
Right.
who needs to be involved? Yes, this is a political issue, but this is a spiritual battle. The church needs to get involved in this. And yet, I'd say 95% of our pastors and our pro life leaders aren't even aware. You guys are really spearheading this. And I know it's a lonely thing to be at the tip of the spear, but you guys are at the tip of the spear. We
Mhm.
need to educate and we need to motivate to get the church involved in this too, because once it becomes, if it becomes a constitutional amendment, it's very difficult to remove it. We can't just have another election and then change
Right.
it. So step one, we need to reveal the truth. Step two, it's going to be going to the Florida State Supreme Court and see if it really meets the criteria of the Florida State Supreme Court to be on the ballot as a constitutional amendment. And it needs 60% of the votes. So God forbid it get on the ballot. But if it does, and right now there's nothing that says it won't, But if
Mhm.
it does, we need to organize like we never have before. Because when we look at the number of abortions each year that are performed in the state of Florida, it's about 89,000 babies that are lost. That's, if you've ever seen you've been to a Florida State football game, that's
Mhm.
greater than the capacity of a Florida State football game there in Tallahassee. That is horrible. We are created in the image of God. We need to defend that image of God, but it is the right thing to do, and we need to unify on this issue.
Amen. Just like you said, we are in a spiritual battle, and this is a matter of life and death. And what you did, put it in perspective with the Florida State Stadium, all filled, those are all lives that could be, that is the future of our generation. And so, this is something that I'm so grateful to be a part of Liberty Counsel as we spearhead the issue. But like you said, more people need to be speaking out and getting more passionate about it. Alrighty, well, we have one more question
Sure.
for you. So, Florida is not the only state pushing for abortion to appear on the state ballot. In fact, we've seen other states like Arizona, Colorado, New York pushing similar initiatives. So, as you travel the country giving voice to the voiceless, what's your message to push back a pro abortion agenda state by state?
We just have to lead with the truth. And the truth is that these are totally new people. These are patients on the inside. They are unique from mom, unique from dad. Each baby from the moment of conception is unique from the other 7 billion people on the planet. And yes, did we have a victory when we, reversed Roe versus Wade? Yes, but evil never rests, evil never sleeps. And so just because we have a victory doesn't mean, hey, we won, we can move on to something else. No, evil keeps fighting back. And now that they're affecting the Constitution, the highest law of the land, we need to be engaged. And what is this really an attack against? Genesis 1:26, that we are created in the image of God. We've all seen people burn the American flag. Well, why would somebody burn the American flag? Because the American flag represents the image of the United States. What
Right.
is abortion at its core foundation? It's an attack on the image of God out of hatred for God Himself. So, yes, we're going to work with our politicians, we're going to work with our physicians, but it's a spiritual battle. Do you want a bunch of obstetricians and a bunch of politicians leading a spiritual battle? No. That needs to be the church. So we need to educate and motivate our pastors, because if the church would come out and vote against this, we would win this battle without a doubt if the church were to engage. We have the power in our congregation to protect life and to change the course of the country, and especially here in the state of Florida.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr.
You're
Lyle.
welcome.
That was amazing. Thank you for sharing your wisdom and your expertise in this area. We are believing and praying for the best case scenario next week, but
Yeah.
also knowing that, as you said, now is the time for us to stand up and lead with truth state by
Amen.
state. And we're so thankful that you do that so well. So thank you so much.
Oh,
And thank
thank
you
you.
for your time.